Louise, really good to talk to you. It seems so unfair, doesn't it, that we've got people who are watching this programme who are fighting so hard just to survive.
I mean, this is inflation that we haven't seen. It's a once in generation. We haven't seen inflation this high for 40 years. And I think we've forgotten how damaging it is. If you look at wage growth, actually, the 2021 numbers were sort of confused with furlough. So slightly ignore the 2021 numbers. If you look at 5% wage growth, that's the highest wage growth we've had in this country since the global financial crisis, if you ignore the sort of furlough confusion. So actually, wage growth is reflecting the fact we have a very tight labour market. We have almost 1.3 million job vacancies. There are jobs out there. There's a lot of businesses crying out for workers. The problem is we've got inflation at 9% and forecast, I don't want to bring a dampener to it, but a forecast to go even higher, potentially getting up to 13% next year. So I'm afraid the wage growth is looking good, but it's just being wiped out entirely by inflation, particularly, again, if you look at the wage growth data, private sector workers are getting relatively better wage growth. The real pain in these numbers has come from the public sector. On average, their wage growth was only at 1.8%. So from the sort of backward-looking data, it's the public sector, the government workers that have been hit so far very, very badly.
Yeah, it's so interesting you say that, Louise. So we've asked this question quite a few times in the last few months. However, the response I've got today are those who are really either on a very low income or on benefits. So I've had Sarah from Sheffield saying, I work in a nursing home for minimum wage. The price increases have left me with no cash and I can't afford a social life. Rashmi says it's very difficult for a disabled person. I have to choose between heating or having food to survive. Meanwhile, Robert from Aberdeen says being single and only on a pension, it has been hard to budget and make ends meet. So Louise, what's your advice for those who really are on an incredibly low income or on a budget or on benefits in all of this?
So normally when you get a recession, which potentially, if our latest GDP figures showed the economy isn't growing, normally when you get a recession, you get people losing their jobs. And in fact, as I said, the jobs market is really tight. So the first thing I would say is if you are really struggling, look around for a new job, because that will hopefully get you more money. The other thing I would say, and hopefully this will only be temporary crisis of inflation, one would hope the government and the Bank of England will do something to ease the inflationary pressures. It's their job to. So hopefully it's only a temporary problem. My advice would be go and maybe work an extra 5 or 10 hours a week at a cafe, at a restaurant, maybe at a petrol station, and just, get you through the next 6 months. I also would expect at some stage the government to do more in terms of support for energy bills, because frankly, you mentioned there the median wage of 25 grand, the mean wage of about 30 grand. If you're looking at 4.5 grand of energy costs and you're on an average wage, it's just utterly unaffordable. So one would hope that whoever enters number 10 Downing Street will come forward by the end of this month, beginning of next month, and really help the struggling poor with energy costs in particular, because that is going to be, even if it's not already, a massive problem.
Louise, thank you very much. That's Louise Cooper, personal finance expert.